Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jose de Perni, and I am honored to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for today. It is with great honor that I welcome you all to this symposium on the moral and ethical nature of teaching profession and the foundational principles of value formation. Today, we gather not just as learners and educators, but also as stewards of values, integrity, and responsibility. Before we proceed our program, let us first seek guidance and blessings from the Almighty. May I request everyone to please stand and bow their heads as we offer a short prayer, and please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us all today in this important endeavor. We ask that you bestow your guidance and blessing upon each attendee. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. Bless everyone present today, that each may be able to share his or her contributions and gifts. Grant good health and safety to loved ones left outside this room, and bestow peace and goodwill to all of us. We ask for your wisdom and grace to use our talents for the betterment of others. May the various activities related to this day be a success through your intervention. With gratitude, we offer this prayer in your name. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Thank you. You may now be seated. It seems that you are a little bit drowsy. Let's fix that. Let's have a short ice big called 4 pigs, 1 word. Here's how the game works. All participants just guess what is the picture all about. So we have here the first picture. What do you think it is? Anyone? Just share. Okay, that's Fatima. Okay, correct. Let's give her a round of applause. The second picture. What do you think it is? Okay. Irish? Honesty? Okay, correct. Let's give her a round of applause. The third picture. What do you think it is? Kindly raise your hand. if you want to answer. Okay, Miss. I think it is. Okay, correct. Let's give her a round of applause. And the last picture.
Fairness.
Okay, Nash.
Equality.
Is it correct or incorrect?
Fairness.
The answer is fairness. The next picture. What do you think it is? Just raise your hand. Okay? Yes? Anyone? Yes, Fatima?
Yes.
Okay, correct. Let's give her a round of applause.
Nag-video mo dito.
Alright, let's begin. Now that everybody is energized, let's proceed by today's main event. Teaching is more than just transfer of knowledge. It is the shaping of character, the nurturing of principles, and the cultivation of virtues that guide both teachers and students in their journey through life. The moral and ethical nature of our professions reminds us that every lesson we impart carries with the power to influence life, while the foundational principles of value formations challenge us to ground education not only in intelligence, but also in compassion, respect, and integrity. This symposium is a chance for us to reflect on our noble role, to deepen our understanding of how values are informed and lived out in education, and to be inspired by wisdom of our distinguished speakers who will shed light on this vital theme. I invite everyone to listen attentively, engage actively, and embrace the opportunity to grow not only as aspiring educators, but as individuals entrusted with shaping the moral compass of the next generation. And now, to formally begin our discussion, it is my privilege to introduce to you our first speaker. He comes from National Buanoy National High School, where his journey as a passionate learner began. He graduated under the strand of Humanities and Social Sciences, a track that shaped his skills in critical thinking, communication, and understanding of society and human behavior. And he is now pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, here in Balamban campus. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Irving John Completo.
Good day, everyone. Today, I will be discussing about morality as a foundational moral principle. First, what is morality? According to Panizo, morality refers to the quality of human acts by which we judge them as right or wrong, or good or evil. In simple terms, our actions are considered right when they follow moral norms, rules, or laws. On the other hand, they are wrong if they go against them. Morality is also linked to human nature. A person's action, habit, or character is considered good if it is aligned with what is natural for us human beings. Now, let us move on to the word principle. Principle comes from the Latin word "praeses," which means a beginning of a source. To put it simply, it is a foundation or basis of something. From this, we have foundational moral principle. This is the universal norm underlying all other judgments of right and wrong. It is the root source of morality and is embedded in what we call the natural law. In short, all our moral judgments, whether something is good or bad, can be traced back to this principle. Now, let us discuss about natural law and universal values. Natural law is often described as the law written. Law written in hearts of men. Saint Thomas Aquinas defined it as the light of natural reason. The light of natural reason that helps us discern what is good and what is evil. At its core, natural law can be summarized in one simple phrase: do good and avoid evil. What's interesting is that this principle is present in many traditions and religion across history. For example, in Christianity, the Confucian thought we see the golden rule: do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Immanuel Kant also echoed this with his principle: act in such a way that your maxim can be a law for all. In Buddhism, the Eightfold Path teaches values such as resisting evil, respecting life, speaking truthfully, and cultivating self-control. In Islam, the five pillars emphasizes prayer, fasting, charity, pilgrimage, along with virtues like honesty, patience, and kindness. These examples show us that morality is not bound by culture or time. Instead, there are universal moral truths that all people can recognize no matter what their background is. Now, do you agree that all people, regardless of religion or culture, share the same values like honesty, kindness, and respect? Anyone? Do you all agree? Yes. Because even though cultures and religion are different, we can see that these values are universal. They guide us to live peacefully with others. In conclusion, morality is about aligning our actions with what is right and good, guided by principles that are universal and deeply rooted in human nature. By understanding the foundational moral principle and natural law, we see that despite our different beliefs and traditions, we all share common values that call us to live rightly, love others, and avoid what is evil. Thank you.
Alright, thank you very much, Sir Coplet, for sharing with us your meaningful insights on morality, natural law, and universal values. Your discussion has given us, as future teachers, a deeper understanding of values and ethical principles that we must begin to embrace even now as students preparing for their professions. To make this session more engaging and to help us reflect further, we will now open the floor for questions and clarifications from the audience. If any of you would like to ask our speaker about the points he tackled, kindly raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. Yes, Fernandez.
When it comes to natural law, especially with us being teachers, what does this apply, or how can we apply these values?
So, natural law is, an example of it is we show kindness. So in that guide, we as teachers guide students into making correct choices, like avoiding, for them to avoid cheating or dishonesty. And also, it is, a natural law is, a universal moral is a thing that we as teachers and that we should teach students. Thank you.
Alright, let's give her a round of applause. At this point, we shall proceed to our next speaker. She will be sharing with us the teacher's moral character, values, and their dimensions. Our second speaker for today is another inspiring individual who will help us deepen our understanding of teaching profession. She comes from ECT Excelencia Global Academy Foundation Incorporated and is also a graduate of Humanities and Social Sciences strand, a track that shaped the passion for education, leadership, and service. And she is currently pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, here at CNU Balamban Campus. Let us all welcome, with a warm applause, Miss Mariel Joy C. Malaki.
Ang dami. Kumukha na ako mga
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you feeling? Are you still with us?
Yes!
Naminaw pa ba mo?
Yes!
Ayaw mo katog, ha? Sige. Once again, good afternoon, future educators. Let me begin with a question. If your future students were to describe you in one word, what kind of teacher would you want to be remembered as? Take a moment to think. Would it be kind, inspiring, patient, or maybe understanding? Whatever your answers may be, they all point to one essential truth. The foundation of being an effective teacher lies not only in how much we know, but in who we are as persons. As teachers, our lessons may be forgotten over time, but our character, the way we live and treat others will leave a lasting mark. Our students may not remember every formula or date we teach, but they will always remember how we made them feel, how we treated them, and what kind of people we showed them we were. There are 4 ways to describe a teacher with good moral character, namely being fully human, being a loving person, being a virtuous person, and being a morally mature person. When we talk about being fully human, to be fully human as a teacher means embracing the wholeness of who we are, our strengths, our limitations, our emotions, and our potential. It is not about being perfect, but about being real. Students don't need flawless teachers. They need teachers who are authentic. When we are fully human, we acknowledge that we are not just transmitters of knowledge, but persons with hearts, with struggles, and with dreams. This allows our students to see that it is okay to make mistakes, to fail, and to stand up again. Our humanity makes us relatable and it builds trust. Being fully human also means balancing the different parts of ourselves, our intellect, our emotions, our actions. It's about showing that while we can be strong and wise, we can also be compassionate and humble. A fully human teacher knows when to be firm, but also when to be gentle, when to lead, but also when to listen. Most importantly, when we live as fully human teachers, we remind our students that they too are called to embrace their own humanity. We teach them that education is not just about excelling in academics, but also about growing as whole persons, capable of thinking critically, feeling deeply, and acting responsibly. Being fully human is the starting point of all moral character because it grounds us in authenticity. And when students see us living authentically, they learn to do the same. Now, being a loving person. Love in teaching goes beyond simple affection. It is a deep and genuine care that is patient, selfless, and unconditional. It means believing in the worth of every student, not only the ones who are easy to handle, but especially those who challenge us the most. The truth is, it is often the difficult students, the ones who misbehave, who test our patience, who seem uninterested, who need a teacher's love the most. To be a loving teacher is to look beyond their actions and see the child inside who is still learning, still searching, and still in need of guidance. This love shows itself in patience, in encouragement, and in never giving up on a student, no matter how hard the journey becomes. When we love even the most challenging learners, we send a powerful message. Every student matters. Every student has a value, and every student is worthy of care. And that kind of love has the power to transform not only classrooms, but lives. Next, being a virtuous person. To be a virtuous teacher means more than simply knowing what is right. It means consistently living it out. Virtue is about forming good habits of the mind, the heart, and the will. It is the daily practice of honesty, fairness, patience, humility, and integrity, even when no one is watching. A virtuous teacher is not measured only by what they teach, but by the kind of life they model. For instance, when we ask students to be honest but they see us making excuses, we teach them hypocrisy. But when we hold ourselves accountable, admit mistakes, and act with fairness, we teach them integrity. Virtue is not taught in a single lesson. It is cultivated through the example of our everyday choices. Being virtuous also means having the courage to do what is right, even when it is unpopular or difficult. There will be moments when standing up for fairness means facing criticism, or when showing patience means sacrificing comfort. In those moments, our students are watching, not to see if we are perfect, but to see if we are principled. Most importantly, when we live as virtuous teachers, we are planting seeds of character in our students. They may forget the equations, the dates, or the grammar rules we taught, but they will carry with them the honesty, respect, and integrity they saw in us. And in the long run, that is what will shape their lives beyond the classroom. Virtue is what transforms teaching from a profession into a vocation. It makes us not only instructors of knowledge, but also builders of character. Next is being a morally mature person. To be morally mature, a teacher means reaching a depth of wisdom that goes beyond knowledge. It is about having the ability to make sound judgments, to act responsibly, and to respond with balance in the face of life's challenges. A morally mature teacher is not easily swayed by anger, pride, or frustration. Instead, they practice self-control and discernment. They know when to correct firmly and when to show compassion, when to stand their ground and when to give away. This maturity is what helps teachers handle conflicts with calmness and guide students with fairness. Moral maturity also means recognizing that teaching is not just about transmitting information, but about shaping human lives. And in shaping lives, we cannot rely on intellect. We must also draw from emotional, social, and spiritual maturity. This means being sensitive to the struggles of students, understanding the bigger context behind their behavior, and responding not with judgment but with guidance. For example, a morally mature response to a misbehaving student might be to embarrass them or respond with harshness. But a morally mature teacher looks deeper, asking, why is this student acting this way? What burden might they be carrying? How can I correct them without breaking their spirit? This is the kind of wisdom that transforms discipline to growth. Moral maturity in teachers creates a safe and nurturing environment. Students learn that mistakes are not the end of the road, but opportunities to grow. And that justice can go hand in hand with compassion. When we, as teachers, embody moral maturity, we prepare our learners not just for exams, but for life, equipping them to become responsible, compassionate, and morally grounded individuals. So my dear future educators, reflect on this. What kind of moral character do you want to live out in your future classroom? Because whether you like it or not, you will be a role model, and your students will catch your values even without you directly teaching them. And this brings us to the next part. Values and their dimensions. Values are both taught and taught. This means that while values can be explained in lessons and written in textbooks, their deepest impact comes from the way they are lived out. For example, students may learn about honesty in a lecture, where the teacher defines it and gives examples. But the real test of understanding happens when they observe honesty, practiced daily. Like when a teacher admits a mistake instead of hiding it, or when fairness is shown in giving equal chances to all students. Students are always watching, even when you think they're not. They notice if we practice what we preach. They remember how we respond to challenges, how we treat others, how we carry ourselves. In truth, our daily actions often teach louder than any lecture we give. That is why, as future educators, it is important to ask ourselves, am I living the values I want my students to learn? Because if our lessons say one thing but our actions show another, students will believe the example, not the words. A teacher who talks about respect but ridicules a student is teaching disrespect, no matter what the lesson says. On the other hand, a teacher who consistently models kindness, patience, and integrity plants those same values in the hearts of students, sometimes without over-mentioning them explicitly. This is the power of common values. They are observed through experience, through observation, and through the example of significant people in a child's life. And as teachers, we will become one of those significant people. Now this leads us to a very important question. How exactly are values learned, both taught and caught inside a classroom? To answer that, let us look closely at the three dimensions of values: cognitive, affective, and behavioral. These dimensions show us that values are not just ideas in the mind, but truths that must touch the heart and guide the hands. So let's dive deeper into these three dimensions, because understanding them will help us shape not only good students, but truly good persons. First is the cognitive dimension. This is where it all begins, in the mind. Students must first understand what a value means and why it matters. At this stage, they are aware of the concept, but it has not yet touched their heart or changed their behavior. In class, you might explain that honesty means telling the truth and being fair. Students can recite that definition, give examples like not cheating during exams, or even write an essay about it. They know the word, the meaning, and the importance, but knowledge alone does not guarantee action. As future educators, this is the stage where you lay the foundation. You explain, clarify, and give context to values. But if we stop here, students may only know values as abstract ideas, something to memorize for a test and not something to live by. Next is the affective dimension. The next step is when values move from the head to the heart. This is when students begin to connect emotionally, making values personal and meaningful. It is no longer just a concept. It becomes something they feel. Imagine a student who cheats on a quiz. They know cheating is wrong, but when they see the disappointment on their teacher's face, they feel guilt and regret. That feeling is the affective dimension at work. Or consider a time when a teacher shares a moving story about kindness. Suddenly, students don't just know kindness, they're inspired to practice it. We can nurture this dimension by using stories, real-life experiences, role plays, or reflective activities that touch the heart. The values stir emotions, whether pride, guilt, joy, or empathy. They become harder to ignore. Students begin to ask, how do I really feel about this value? Next, we have the behavioral dimension. The true test of values is in action. This is the stage where values are consistently expressed in choices, words, and deeds. Students no longer just know what honesty means or feel bad when they lie. They actually choose to be honest, even when it's difficult. For example, a student admits to a mistake instead of blaming others. even if it means facing consequences. Another student chooses to respect classmates by not interrupting, listening attentively, and showing courtesy to everyone, including the janitors and guards. Here, values move from knowledge and emotion to real, lived practice. We cannot stop at awareness and feelings. We must give opportunities for students to practice these values. This could be through group work that requires cooperation, classroom rules to promote fairness, or community service projects that let them live out compassion. When students act on values repeatedly, they become habits, and habits shape character. These three matter because, for example, a student may know that cheating is wrong. They may even feel guilty when they do it. But unless they choose not to cheat, even when no one is watching, the value has not yet taken root. Without the cognitive, students act without understanding. Without the affective, values remain cold and impersonal. Without the behavioral, values stay as mere ideas and feelings. When all three dimensions come together, knowing, feeling, and living, values becomes part of who we are. So my future educators, your challenge is not only to teach values with words, but to model them with your actions, to stir them in your students' hearts, and to guide them in living them daily. Because at the end of the day, values are not measured by what students can recite, but by how they live when no one is watching. Now that we've reflected on the teacher's values shape the classroom through the cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimensions, it is also important to see how values themselves can be understood at different levels. Values are not equal. Some are more basic and immediate, while others are deeper and more lasting. To help us understand this better, we turn to the work of Max Scheler, a philosopher who explained values in a hierarchy. His framework allows us to see which values are temporary, which ones nurture life, which guides our sense of right and wrong, and which points us to something ultimate and transcendent. So let us now take a closer look at Max Scheler's hierarchy of values. First, we have the pleasure values. These are the most basic values connected to our senses. What feels good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. For example, the joy of eating your favorite food or comfort of sitting in an air-conditioned room. In teaching, this can be as simple as making the classroom engaging and enjoyable. But as we all know, pleasure fades quickly. So this value is the starting point, not the end goal. Second, we move to the vital values. These are about physical and emotional well-being. They go deeper than pleasure because they help us thrive. Think of health, resilience, and emotional stability. As teachers, we reflect vital values when we model balance, like staying calm under pressure or encouraging students to take care of their health and emotions. Third, we rise to the spiritual values. These are not tied to physical needs, but to higher human capacities like truth, justice, and beauty. For instance, appreciating art, standing for fairness, or seeking wisdom. This is where teachers become strong role models. When we are honest in our dealings, fair in grading, or when we encourage critical thinking and love for truth. Students don't just hear these values, they see them in us. And finally, the highest are the values of the holy. These are transcendent values: faith, love, hope, and devotion. They go beyond ourselves and connect us to ultimate meaning and purpose. As future educators, we'll live these values when we inspire students to see life as more than just a success or failure, but as a journey with deeper meaning, whether through respect for diverse beliefs or by radiating love and integrity. We help our students look forward to the highest values. So what can we learn from Scheler? That values form a ladder, from the most basic to the most profound. And as teachers, our challenge is not just to stop at making learning fun or comfortable, but to elevate our students toward the higher levels of education. Because in the end, our mission is not only to shape intelligent minds, but also to nurture the noble hearts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Batomake, for sharing with us your insightful discussion on teachers' moral character and values in their dimension. At this point, we would like to hear from you, our fellow future educators. If there are any questions or insights you wish to share with our speaker about the discussion, please don't hesitate to raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. Yes, Miss Irish?
So, as future educators, how can we ensure that the values we want our students to learn, such as honesty, respect, and compassion, move beyond the cognitive and affective dimensions and actually become part of their daily behavior and character?
Thank you so much, Ms. Minerale. So, values become part of students' daily lives when they see them modeled, meaning we as teachers practice them so that our teachers would be able to copy or see us as good examples. So that, if it is practiced and if it is presented to the students, then in time, they themselves will be able to apply it. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful answer, Ms. Batomake. Our third speaker for today is a compassionate individual who believes that teaching is not only about imparting knowledge, but also about nurturing values and shaping character. With a strong dedication to the teaching profession, she continues to inspire others through a commitment to service and learning. This afternoon, she will be representing on moral versus ethics in teaching, a discussion that will surely guide us in our journey as future educators. She is a graduate of Huanay National High School under the Humanities and Social Sciences stream. And she is currently pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English here at CMU Balamban campus. Let us all welcome Miss Abigail Caltabaco. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hello. Good day, everyone. Today, I will be sharing with you one important topic. So it is moral versus ethics in teaching. At first, these two words may sound the same, but in reality, they carry different meanings that are very crucial in education. Morals are personal values, our own sense of right and wrong, shaped by our upbringing, culture, religion, and life experiences. For example, a teacher may personally believe that honesty is the most important value in life. Ethics, on the other hand, are the professional standards, the rules and guidelines that teachers are expected to follow in their profession. These are not just personal choices, they are shared standards that ensure fairness, respect, and integrity inside the classroom. For instance, even if a teacher has a personal dislike toward a student, ethics demands that teacher must still treat that student fairly. Morals are personal, ethics are professional. Morals guide us as individuals, while ethics guides us as a professional in teaching. Both are necessary because being a teacher is not only about imparting knowledge, but also about modeling the right behavior. Now let me ask you a simple question. If you were a teacher, would you treat your students fairly even personally you didn't like them? What is your answer? Yes. Is it yes or no? Yes. Exactly. Your morals might tell you to avoid someone you dislike, but your ethics as a teacher require you to rise above personal feelings and just to be all. That is why teaching is often described as both a professional and a vocation. A professional because it requires skills and adherence to ethical standards. A vocation because it calls for a moral heart that genuinely cares for students. A teacher without morals, we know their faults but lack of compassion. A teacher without ethics may be kind, but risk being unfair. But when morals and ethics work together, we find the true essence of teaching, guiding students not only in mind, but also in character. So in conclusion, morals are who we are. Ethics are what we must do. As teachers, our responsibility is to balance both morals and ethics, holding on to our values, or respecting the professional code that ensures justice and fairness for all learners. Thank you, and may this reflection remind us that teaching is not about lessons in books, but lessons in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Catabaco, for delivering such a thought-provoking talk on moral versus ethics in teaching. Your message has reminded us that while morality guides us through personal principles, ethics direct us on fulfilling our professional responsibilities as future teachers. At this point, we will open the floor for questions and clarifications from the audience. This is your chance as future teachers to ask about the points that captured your interest or to seek further understanding of the ideas discussed. If you have a question, kindly raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. Yes, miss.
Hello. My question for Ms. Abigail is, since you talked about morals versus ethics, right? If morals are personal and ethics are professional, what should a teacher follow if their personal morals conflict with their professional ethics?
Well, that's a very great question. In teaching, personal morals and professional ethics conflict. As a teacher, we must prioritize ethics. Why? Because ethics ensures fairness, equality, and professionalism in classroom. Personal morals may guide or shape our character, but ethics is to protect our students and to maintain trust in teaching profession. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful answer, Ms. Abigail. Moving forward with our program, we now come to our fourth speaker. She is known as a diligent and optimistic individual who believes that teaching is not only about imparting knowledge, but also about forming values and character. Today, she will be sharing a talk on moral dimensions of teaching and essential values of teacher, a topic that will surely inspire us as a future teachers to reflect on our rules and responsibilities in the profession. She studied and graduated at SAP Excellencia Global Academy Foundation Incorporated under the Accountancy and Business Management stream. She is currently pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English here at St. Hugh Balangan campus. Let us give a round of applause to welcome Miss Mariela Lynn Eliza Del Pozo.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here today to share with you an important topic that goes beyond academics. The moral dimension of teaching and essential values in teaching. In moral dimension of teaching, teaching is not only about imparting knowledge, but also about shaping the character and values of learning. Teachers are considered moral agents, individuals whose actions and conduct influence students beyond the classroom. As future educators, We help shape character development, which means that our personal and professional lives must remain aligned. Being ethical should not only apply in school, but also at home and in public. A teacher cannot separate personal values from their professional role because values and beliefs naturally carry over into teaching. True ethical professionalism happens when teachers live with integrity both privately and publicly. Teachers also have moral purpose. The goal of teaching is not simply to deliver content, but to help students become the best individuals they can be. Society expects teachers to uphold high moral standards as they influence young and impressionable learners. Beyond academic skills, teachers are expected to model and inspire virtues such as honesty, kindness, respect, and responsibility. Teaching, therefore, is an act of integrity, one that requires good conduct and a strong sense of responsibility to positively influence students. In moral authority of teachers, in the classroom, should teachers be seen as role models of discipline and knowledge? Is it yes or no? Yes! Yes, because teachers hold moral authority. They are entrusted with the responsibility to guide, instruct, and discipline learners because of their professional expertise. According to Bosley and Johnson, teachers exercise two main kinds of authority. Those are being an authority in the classroom and being an authority in the classroom. When we talk about being an authority in the classroom, this refers to the teacher's ability to guide and discipline students through institutional power. In this role, teachers serve as figure of authority whose instructions learners are expected to follow. Next is being an authority in the classroom. This refers to the teacher's role as a possessor and transmitter of values and knowledge. Teachers do not just manage behavior. They also have the power and responsibility to pass on legitimate knowledge and to shape what learners should know, do, and demonstrate. Their depth of knowledge, creativity, and expertise allows them to design lessons that meet learners' needs while also transmitting essential values. But what exactly are the values that make this possible? Let's look at the essential values in teaching. In essential values in teaching, teaching is a moral and ethical responsibility. Teachers must live out principles and virtues, not only in words, but also in actions. By being moral agents, teachers transform teaching from a technical job into a meaningful vocation with lasting influence. The profession is therefore anchored on several essential values. First is care, the foundation of teaching. Teachers must show compassion, understanding, and acceptance of learners' individuality. When students feel cared for, especially during failure, loneliness, or challenges, they also learn to be more compassionate towards others. Showing care is the foundation of teaching, but care alone is not enough, because for students to truly learn, they must also trust their teachers. Can learning truly happen if there is no trust between teachers and students? No, right? No. It's because teaching is built on trust between teachers, learners, parents, colleagues, and the community. A trusting teacher is open, honest, and dependable, helping learners feel safe in the classroom. Without trust, relationships weaken and learning becomes harder. Once trust is established, respect naturally follows. In every place you go, there is always respect, right?
Yes!
Yes, because respect means to value the dignity of every individual. Teachers are expected to treat learners fairly while also respecting colleagues, parents, and school leaders. Respect helps create harmony, justice, and peace within the school community. Of course, respect won't mean much if we don't have integrity. Integrity is doing what is right even when it is difficult. Teachers often face situations that test their values and their ability to act with honesty and self-control demonstrates true professionalism. But integrity has to go hand in hand with fairness, especially in a diverse classroom. Classrooms are diverse, and fairness requires teachers to treat all learners equally, regardless of background, ability, or beliefs. Fairness ensures that all students have equal opportunities to succeed and be valued. And finally, fairness connects with responsibility, because every choice we make affects our students. Responsibility means being accountable for one's action and fulfilling duties with dedication. Responsible teachers prepare well, meet expectations, and accept the consequences of their choices. Every decision in teaching carries weight, and responsibility reminds us of the impact these decisions have on learners. And final thought, the moral dimension of teaching reminds us that education is more than academics. It is about shaping lives. Teachers serve not only as educators, but as role models, mentors, and moral agents whose influence extends far beyond the classroom. By embodying care, trust, respect, integrity, fairness, and responsibility, teachers fulfill their noble mission of guiding learners to become not only knowledgeable, but also ethical and compassionate members of society. That's all. Thank you.
What a meaningful and enlightening discussion we just had from Ms. Del Pozo. Her discussion not only informed us, but also challenged us to think about how we, as future teachers, can live out these values in our personal and professional lives. Now, we would love to hear from you. This is your chance to ask questions, clarify ideas, or even share your own reflections connected to the topic. If you have something in mind, please raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. None? Okay, let's proceed to the next speaker. Now, we are excited to welcome our fifth speaker for today's symposium. She is a dedicated and innovative individual who brings a fresh perspective to the teaching profession and a genuine commitment to guiding future educators. She is a graduate of Milan Canton National High School under the Humanities and Social Sciences strand, and she is currently pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, here at CNU Balamban campus. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to Miss Noreline Dayao.
Pleasant day to each one. In this session, I will be discussing teaching morality and ethical challenges in teaching. Teaching morality refers to the idea of instructing in a way that aligns with general notions of what is good or right. This means teachers should model the behaviors, virtues, and values you wish to impart to their students. As Mr. Muncher of 2009 suggests, teachers must embody the ethics and values they teach. For instance, a teacher who demonstrates respect, punctuality, and kindness becomes a role model for the students. Students observe these actions and internalize these values often without formal instruction. However, this raises an important question, often debated in education. Can virtues like patience, teamwork, and punctuality actually be taught, or are they simply taught through example? Some believe teachers can instill values directly through character education, while others argue that learners observe values by observing role models. In reality, it's both values are taught and taught. A teacher will consistently arrive on time. For example, teachers' punctuality without saying a word. On the other hand, teaching morality is about actively conveying what is right and wrong through direct instruction. Here, teachers explicitly discuss moral values, ethics, and guide students in making moral judgments. This could involve lessons on respect, fairness, honesty, or justice. It's about providing students with a framework to understand and distinguish right from wrong. Before I proceed, let me ask you a quick question. Do you think teachers can influence students' values simply by modeling good behavior? Is it a yes or a no?
Yes!
In practice, teachers need to know both. They must teach morally by modeling behaviors and teach morality by providing direct moral instruction. While the theoretical distinction between these two concepts is clear, in real-life teaching, it becomes blurred. For instance, when a teacher models respect in their behavior, they may be both teaching morally and teaching morality, because the behavior itself is a lesson in moral values, and they may explicitly discuss its importance. Now, let us move on to ethical challenges and teaching. Ethical dilemmas are an inevitable part of teaching. As stated, teaching is never free from ethical problems, and such is inevitable in the profession. Teachers are constantly faced with difficult choices, often between two options that will carry good and bad consequences. One challenge is deciding what knowledge or topic to prioritize. When teacher chose which lessons to emphasize, they make moral judgments about what's most essential for preparing students' life. One dilemma involves school norms versus family expectations. For instance, a teacher may encourage self-expression, but students raised in homes valuing obedience may struggle with this. As the text states, there exists an inconsistency in rules in the school and home environment. Another ethical challenge is the tension between adhering to rules and caring for others. A teacher might witness a colleague harming a student, knowing it violates the child protection policy, yet feel conflicted about reporting it due to personal relationships. This reflects the clash between the formal climate and the caring climate. A further challenge is the tension between adhering to the rules and caring for others. For example, a teacher might witness a colleague harming students, knowing it values We also face the dilemma of equal treatment versus individual attention. For example, teacher Lornette gives more time to slow learners, sacrificing time with fast learners. Here, there's a struggle between procedural justice, treating everyone equally, and distributive justice, meeting learners' unique needs. Lastly, there's a conflict between deep learning and curriculum coverage. Teacher Irene prioritizes mastery of a key topic, but in doing so, sacrifices other mandated content. This highlights the challenge of balancing meaningful education with institutional requirements. In all these cases, teachers are forced to navigate complex moral narratives, and through our actions detach the values we teach. As future educators, we must reflect carefully and act in ways that serve both the learners and the profession with integrity. Our responsibility goes beyond teaching knowledge. It involves shaping character, modeling virtues, and navigating ethical dilemmas with wisdom. To be a teacher is to know both. Teach morality through our lessons and teach morally through our action. That's all. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kaya, for that enlightening talk. Your ideas have given us plenty to think about as future educators, especially how we can apply these principles in our own journey toward becoming responsible and value-driven teacher. Now, it's your turn to join the conversation. If there's something you'd like to ask, clarify, or share about what our speaker just discussed, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. This is your opportunity to interact and deepen your understanding of the topic. If you have questions, just raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. Okay, now, so let's proceed to our last speaker. As we approach the final segment of our symposium, it is my honor to introduce our last speaker. He is a visionary who has shown a strong commitment to education and the development of future teachers. He studied and graduated from Nangka National High School under the Humanities and Social Sciences stream. He is currently pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English at HIP, St. Bulacan campus. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to Mr. Limerick Gong.
Good day everyone. Today I will be discussing how to teach morals and ethics. In today's society, where young people are exposed to so many influences, teaching values is no longer optional but a vital part of education. So, let's we have first. We must live values as a way of life and act as a role models. Learners often learn more from what they see than from what they hear. When teachers, parents, and leaders demonstrate honesty, respect, and kindness, students are more likely to embody those same values. Second, we must help learners understand why people stand for their beliefs. This gives them a deeper sense of conviction and teaches them to respect diverse perspectives while strengthening their own moral foundations. Third, we should teach empathy by encouraging perspective taking. By guiding learners to see situations from another person's point of view, we cultivate compassion, understanding, and fairness. Fourth, we must use every moment as an opportunity to promote values, even small acts, whether during group work, discussions, or casual interactions, can reinforce lessons in respect, responsibility, and cooperation. Now finally, ethics and values must be integrated into all subjects and activities. Morals should not be confined to values education alone. They can also be reflected in fairness in mathematics, responsibility in science, honesty in English, and teamwork in sports. Now, to better understand how morals can be developed, let me share with you the framework of Angela Lumpkin, introduced in 2003. She explained that moral education can be viewed in 3 dimensions. We have the head, the heart, and the hands. First, moral knowing, or the head, means learning moral principles and discerning right from wrong. This is the foundation of knowledge. Second, moral valuing, or the heart, refers to internalizing and appreciating moral values while rejecting wrong actions. Here we go beyond knowledge and truly embrace values in our hearts. Third, moral acting, or DEHANS, means putting moral knowledge into action. This is a true test of character, acting consistently with moral values despite challenges and social pressures. In conclusion, teaching morals and ethics requires both words and actions. It begins with knowledge, deepens through valuing, and is proven through consistent actions. As educators, students, and members of society, we all share the responsibility to model, understand, and live by these values so that we can not only teach lessons, but also shape lives. Thank you, and good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Go, for that comprehensive and thought-provoking discussion. Your insight has given us, as future educators, practical guidance on how to foster moral and ethical development in our students, and reminded us of the vital role teachers play in shaping character. Now, we would like to give everyone an opportunity to engage with our speaker. If you have questions, clarifications, or reflection about how teach morals and ethics or stages of moral reasoning, please feel free to raise your hand and you will be acknowledged to share your thoughts. Does anyone have a question? Alright, none. So ladies and gentlemen, as we come to an end of our symposium, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all of our speakers for sharing their knowledge, experiences, and insights of the moral and ethical responsibilities of teachers. Your discussions have truly guided us as future teachers to reflect on the values and principles that we must carry into our professions. Before we officially conclude, we would like all of you to participate in a brief reflection activity. Please answer the following questions via Google form that we have provided and sent to the GC. How was your understanding of the moral and ethical responsibilities of teachers influence your perspective on the role of education in shaping not only the knowledge, but also the character of the learners? Your responses will help us understand how symposium has impacted your perspective and learning. Once again, thank you all for your active participation. Let us give another round of applause to our speakers and to everyone who made this event possible. As William Butler Yeats once said, education is not the feeling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. This reminds us that teaching is not just about giving students information or facts. True education involves shaping their values, moral character, and critical thinking, igniting curiosity, ethical understanding, and passion for learning. May we all continue to ignite the flames of knowledge, values, and character in learners we will serve in the future. Thank you once again, and God bless us all.